President Joe Biden tonight will deliver remarks from the Oval Office on his decision to pass the baton to the next generation, embodied by his Vice President, Kamala Harris. The president's unprecedented political sacrifice has been met with party unity and extraordinary levels of enthusiasm from Democrats for the fight ahead. $126 million have been raised. More than 100,000 volunteers have signed up, and 38,500 new voters have been registered. And curtain number two, the other side, desperate and plain as day racist attacks on the de facto Democratic nominee that reveal a MAGA world in mega meltdown mode. They are trying to find ways to smear her any way that they can, from attacking the way Vice President Kamala Harris laughs to her endearingly nerdy love of Venn diagrams, and they are doing it with blatant and ugly racism. They're suggesting that a woman who spent 7 years as San Francisco's district attorney, who served as California Attorney General, a United States senator, and is currently America's vice president, is somehow unqualified for the job that Donald Trump once held, that she is only where she is because of her race. Again, unlike their guy who once hosted The Apprentice. Take a listen to what they're saying.
The only reason Kamala's in the White House is because of the DEI deal Biden cut with Bernie.
And, of course, her whole history is DEI, diversity, exclusion, and equity.
What about white females? What about any other group? When you go down that route, you take mediocrity, and that's what they have right now as a vice president.
Apparently, they feel, or a lot of Democrats feel, they have to stick with her because of her ethnic background.
Intellectually, just really kind of the bottom of the barrel. I think she was a DEI hire.
Maybe we should tell them it's working, right? Keep saying that stuff, guys. The comments reflect so horrifically on the Republican Party that House Republican leadership has reportedly begged Republican members behind closed doors to stop their racist attacks. Even former House Speaker Republican Kevin McCarthy spoke up to chastise his fellow Republicans. Here he is talking to NBC's Garrett Haake.
I would say two attacks I've heard Republicans give that are totally stupid and dumb to do is the DEI attack. This DEI, that seems like a petty. Look, I disagree with DEI, but she is the Vice President of the United States. She is the former U.S. Senator. These congressmen that are saying it, they're wrong in their own instance.
It's a bit more than petty, though, isn't it? Yeah, you know it is. Here's former Republican Congressman Adam Kinzinger calling it out for exactly what it is.
This is a disgusting dog whistle. It's not even a dog whistle anymore. It's an outright whistle. What they're saying is only white men are deserving of certain positions.
How did that work out, right? How'd your white man do? Today in a speech in Indianapolis, Vice President Harris stood above this fray, keeping her focus on the future and on the issues and the dangers of a second Trump term. Watch.
Across our nation, we are witnessing a full-on assault on hard-fought, hard-won freedoms and rights. The freedom to vote, the freedom to be safe from gun violence, the freedom to live without fear of bigotry and hate, the freedom to love who you love openly and with pride, the freedom to learn and acknowledge our true and full history, and the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government telling her what to do. In this moment, our nation, as it always has, is counting on you to energize, to organize, and to mobilize. We know when we organize, mountains move. When we mobilize, nations change. And when we vote, we make history.
The GOP Stoking Racism in America as the de facto Democratic nominee focuses on the future and what is possible. It's where we start today. With me at the table, former Assistant U.S. Attorney, President of the Leadership Conference on Civil and Human Rights, Maya Wiley's here, plus Princeton University professor, distinguished political scholar, and author Eddie Glaude is here, and chief political columnist and host of the podcast In Politic for Puck, MSNBC national affairs analyst John Heilman's here. Also joining us, MSNBC political analyst Erin Haynes. She's the editor-at-large for the 19th and host of the podcast, The Amendment. Maya Wiley, the vice president, is not engaged in any of this. She has proven herself already, not just in 3 days as the de facto nominee, but in months now on the campaign trail, as focused on a rather singular message: we're not going back. And her crowds are already chanting that.
Yeah, and there's a direct line, Nicole, from the DE&I attack to Project 2025, this blueprint that says very explicitly that it wants to go after all the protections we created in civil rights laws through the civil rights movement, through the 60 years, sitting here on the 60th anniversary of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. When you hear them say she's a DE&I fill in the blank, in addition to its overt racism and sexism, and I'm going to say it out loud, it is overtly sexist and racist to say that by virtue of the fact that she's a woman and a woman of color, she's not qualified, because that's all they're saying, is exactly the same thing that they've put in the blueprint as the plan for the country, to say we will undermine the ability of the federal government to assert, enforce, and protect us from employment discrimination, that we will try to close and shutter the Department of Education if we can. But if we can't, we'll just make sure any of the complaints of our children, whether they're being bullied because they're Jewish, by the way, or because they're Muslim, or because they're Black or Asian or anything else, we're going to take the power of them to force our civil rights laws away to protect our children in schools. That is what was in the Civil Rights Act of 1964. This messaging is explicit in that project, and what Kamala Harris is doing, both as a vice president, because I've been with her when she has made these statements as a vice president as a matter of policy, and what she's explaining to the American public is we have a choice for the future, and it's either to be in the future or it's to go back to the dark ages. And I think she's making it plain and clear.
I mean, the only fight that's sort of underway is on the right, right? You got Kevin McCarthy and Adam Kinzinger, two Republicans, scolding Republicans, voices on the right, making this attack. Not only, I would guess, because it's immoral, but because it stinks as a political line of attack.
Yeah, I don't think they can do it, though. The toothpaste is out of that tube.
Yeah.
I mean, the entire MAGA movement is predicated on this not even dog whistle, on this grievance, on this sense of hatred. The sense of the demographic shifts in the country, that the browning of America, the idea that big government has put its thumb on the scale such that these folk can jump ahead of the line, the very ways in which merit is being deployed in order to, shall we say that someone like me shouldn't be at Princeton, for example, because it's precisely because of affirmative action. So all of that has been at the heart of MAGA since he came down the escalator. So the idea that somehow we're going to go back to the 90s and the 80s and do dog whistles? No, foghorns. That's all they do is foghorns.